Hi everyone. How you doing, bro? This is your boy Sim Temple of it. The EFF is at it again, Buffett. Babuile Futi. You know the EFF is always there to grab headlines, Buffett. It's there to grab headlines. They march to Kleinfontein to the whites only town. They planned the march. I don't know if they did march to Orania also. So you know the EFF, they're always busy, guys. They are always busy. They are always busy. My first vote in 2014 ever was I voted for the EFF because I really believe in them back then. I really believe in them back then. Remember Julius, they were young, 31 if I'm not mistaken, 32. Abo Floyd, Abo Ndlozi, yeah. With the advocate, Dalimbo, who is they are meant to get, meant to. Back then I really believe in them, but now I am not sure, guys. I'm not sure. Now I'm apolitical, me. I'm very apolitical. I'm waiting for the manifesto to come out, people for me to convince me, for me to vote. I'm not a political member or that I'm a staunch ANC member, I'm a staunch EFF member, I'm an IFP member. Nah. I urge everyone to be apolitical like me. Be your future, Baba. Be with your kids, Baba. Be your for yourself. Be for yourself. Don't be for the people. Don't die for the EFF. Don't die for 1KI. Die for your kids, but die for yourself. Die for your future. Anyway, there's this story written by Kamukhelo Muchele. It says EFF Ompile Maotwe advocates for apartheid tax to safeguard vulnerable families from VAT hike. So EFF Treasury General Ompile Maotwe has urged the government to introduce an apartheid tax on inherited apartheid era wealth intent of raising value-added tax. Is this even like? What's that? Does this even make sense? What? Speaking to journalists outside the Western Cape High Court on Tuesday during the first hearing challenging legality of planned VAT hike, Maotwe argued that such a tax reform would not only generate significant more revenue than the 28 billion shortfall the government seeks to address. She said this would also ease growing tension within the government of national unity over fiscal policy. She further criticized Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana for lacking the political will to impose taxes on the wealthy, suggesting that the minister was afraid to approach the rich and instead of opted for a VAT increase that disproportionately impacts on the poor. Yeah. That will give you far more money than the 28 billion they're looking for. The easy target is often the poor. We can't afford to put bread on the table. Imagine with the impact of the VAT increase. But these people need to cut their salaries. Nani parliamentarian. That's why people are saying EFF members are fake Marxists and fake what. Oh, why don't you advocate for the salary to be cut, Baba? Why did you remove the Sankara oath? Guys, Gucci revolutionaries. Our people will die from poverty. The triple operation of poverty, inequality, and unemployment is going to get worse, she said. The EFF and the DA requested the court to halt tax hikes, arguing that it will cripple the public pockets. The court is yet to rule. But you guys, as parliamentarians, are earning 100,000 for no reason. You're not even working there. You're earning too much money for no reason. Man. Cut your salaries. That's the solution for everything. Cut your salaries. Cut your spending. You're not spending anything in terms of health. You don't buy your own food. Politicians in Jai. You are the one who are oppressing black people. You as black politicians must know. The hike is expected to come in on May. Apparently, it was overturned. The hike was overturned. In his defense, Finance Minister Godongwana emphasized the necessity of the VAT hike to sustain critical public services, including healthcare, education, transportation, and public safety. Legal submission from Trade Treasury argued that VAT increases is the most viable and sustainable option given current fiscal constraints, limited borrowing capacity and the risk associated with further budget cuts. In contrast, Maotwe advocates for a more progressive taxation approach. She has called on the government to shift the fiscal burden into high net worth individual by introducing a wealthy tax, closing loopholes that allow trust and luxury properties to evade fair taxation. Yeah, you can tax the rich, bruh. You can tax the rich, but the rich are refusing to be taxed, saying you cannot bring them down if you wanna uplift other people. You cannot bring their standards down if you wanna uplift the poor. That's not the way to go. So that's the argument here. Saying you cannot make people rich by making the rich poor. That's what they are saying. But them being taxed, they need to be taxed like everyone else. They need to be taxed just like everyone else. In his defense, Finance Minister emphasized the necessity of the VAT to sustain critical public services, including healthcare, education, transportation, and public safety. They need to cut their salaries, Bob. Our South African civil service, apparently, according to Muele Zimbeki, are one of the highest paid in terms of the GDP, in proportion in relation to the GDP. 15% or 25% of our GDP goes to them. So they need to cut their salaries, these people. Legal submission from the Treasury argued that VAT increases the most viable and sustainable options given current fiscal constraints, limited borrowing capacities, and the risk associated with further budget cut. In contrast, Maotwe has advocated for a more progressive taxation approach. She has called on the government to shift the fiscal burden into a high net worth individual by introducing a wealth tax and closing loopholes that allow trust and properties to evade fair taxation. We are telling him that he has a need to increase VAT. He needs to tax the rich, introduce a wealth tax. Many trusts hold luxuries properties which are not being taxed, but they use the portfolio to apply for loans at the banks, she said. She also proposed an increase in the corporation tax rate from the current 27 to 29, citing strong profit margins in the private sector. I do agree with you, but you also in the public sector, you need to be taxed too. Look, your salary, you need to cut your salary. I'm sounding like a broken CD now, but you need to cut your salaries, guys. Anyway, tell me what you think, guys. Do you think Maotwe is onto something, or it's just the EFF playing to the gallery of it? This is your boys in Temple. This is Mzansi Political General. See you in the next video. Ta-da.